Men of Reddit, who are your female heroes? Pretended to be Xena all the time as a kid. Came here to say Xena. She was an amazing badass. Honorable mention for Zoe Bell, the stuntwoman for Xena, warrior princess, and all-around badass. Who is also the masked cowboy in Django Unchained who had her character story cut? Zoe Bell is so good in Death Proof. And is the stuntwoman for Uma Thurman in Kill Bill. Lucy Lawless is an all-around badass. Great in Xena, great in Spartacus, embraced the Xena/Gabrielle shipping and became a pretty outspoken advocate for LGBT rights, and has called Kevin Sorbo out on his bullcrap quite a few times. Also she can fly. Edit, forgot to mention Ash vs. Evil Dead. Lucy Flawless. Great in Battlestar Galactica, too. The manager I had when I volunteered in a charity shop. I was in a very bad place in my life, and she helped to coax me out of my shell, and build my confidence. And she told customers who were rude to me to F off. I'm a little person, so I tend to attract jerks. She was so classy while not taking anyone's crap, and she was unflappable in any situation. I aspired to be like her one day. Yes, had a female manager like this. I had lost my little sister when I was 20 and at the time I was in college and working, and I couldn't lose my job and for personal reasons I went back to school and work. Oh, and I was living in a city carless an hour and a half from my divorced parents and where the funeral had taken place, so when I decided to go back I wanted to be by myself and isolate and basically pretend nothing happened. I flunked my classes and work was a mess as well. I was already heavy and gained significantly more weight and I was severely depressed. One day I was behind the counter at my McDonald's job. I had worked at Chick-fil-A but they legit fired me for my depression, but I digress. And one customer had come up to me to order and I crap you not bought 3 things on the dollar menu and played in all pennies. Then forced me to count it. I was exhausted. I was 2/3 RDS of the way through a 7-hour shift, after I had already been at school for 5 hours and still had to study after work. This was daily at the time. Anyway, I was depressed and under a lot of pressure, but I digress. Again, I had been counting up the pennies but very slowly, and she would constantly interrupt my train of thought by complaining how slow I was and seriously looked me in the eyes and said, "You're a real F-up, aren't you?" And I was just so devastated by that statement that I just said I straight up wasn't going to count her change. She was so upset by that she called my manager over to complain about my service, and I told her what exactly happened while I was half crying. She went up to her and went straight savage on her, saying that I wasn't her whipping boy and that I was working hard on my doctorate. And stuff like that. She really went to bat for me and I will never forget it. I was super vulnerable and could have killed myself any day, but at least my work life was easier because of her. "You're a real F-up, aren't ya?" says the one paying in all pennies. Some people. I paid in pennies once and spent the whole time helping the guy count them and apologizing. I was also like 14 and had no job, but still. As someone who has been a cashier, we get it. Don't feel bad for the circumstances you find yourself in. God effing damn, is this inspiring. Proud of you, dude, or dudette, and absolutely in awe of your ex-manager. People like this. Yes. Thank you, homie. I'm a dude and doing better now. Wow, that's a lot to go through. I hope you are in a better place, and hugs from an internet stranger. I'm not a Karen, but I feel like I'd really like to speak to this manager. We are all Karens on this blessed day. Is it St. Karen's Day already? Tiz replied on Helga. I'm going. Elizabeth Friedman was a badass mathematical genius who used her code-breaking skills to help bring down some of the biggest mobsters in the 1930s while they were busy running circles around law enforcement. More importantly, she was responsible for breaking up Nazi spy rings in the 1940s, particularly in South America, and helped turn the tide of major conflicts that very possibly shifted the outcome of World War II. And she did all of it while being mocked, dismissed, and forced to keep her work secret by order of the government. Nobody knew her contributions in taking down the Nazis until after she died and her work was declassified. Everyone should know this amazing woman who sought neither accolades nor credit for doing what her male counterparts couldn't even begin to comprehend. Web link. Thank you for posting this. On a whim I picked up the book The Woman Who Smashed Codes a few weeks ago, and holy crap, what an incredible woman and incredible story. Her husband takes a lot of credit for the work they did, but only because most of what she contributed was still classified until more recently. Highly recommend this book and or her life story for anyone who loves history and code breaking. On a similar note, Indian mathematician, Shakuntala Devi, 1929 to 2013, also known as the human computer. She was well ahead of time. She's written a book on homosexuality and a number of books in math, astrology and puzzles. She broke world records in mathematical calculations where she was faster than back then calculator. From Wikipedia. On June 18, 1980, she demonstrated the multiplication of two 13-digit numbers, 7,686,369,774,870 times 2,465,099,745,779. These numbers were picked at random by the Department of Computing at Imperial College London. She correctly answered 18 septillion 947 sextillion 668 quintillion 177 quadrillion 995 trillion 426 billion 462,773,730 in 28 seconds. This event was recorded in the 1982 Guinness Book of World Records. Writer Stephen Smith commented, "The result is so far superior to anything previously reported that it can only be described as unbelievable." That's less time than it took for me to type the numbers in a calculator, damn. If that's impressive, you should watch her shows. She's got an amazing sense of humor. Come on Hollywood, we need a hit movie on this incredible woman's stat. Marie Curie took one for the team. Her story of thinking she lost 10 years of work, but still returning to her lab to start anew inspired me as a young kid interested in science. And here I lost 4 hours of progress in a game and I gave up. Sigh. Laughing out loud, 4 hours I lost 5 minutes and a couple cutscenes and just didn't relaunch the game. One part of her life that really stuck with me was how she took up her husband's position as professor when he died, becoming the first woman professor at the University of Paris. How she moved on, even though his loss was devastating to her, is just so powerful. Truly a hero and pioneer in the field, a person not only women can look up to but men as well. She and Carl Sagan have to be my personal heroes in all of science. I hope many girls/women are inspired by her, and if I ever have a daughter, it would be a shame if I didn't show her who Madame Curie was. Check out the Hadewige trials, Maria the Jewess. Hell, even Hedy Lamarr is a hero of mine because she literally invented the Wi-Fi idea and how an airplane looks. Edit. For bonus material of maybe one of the most badass women. Web link. Her original 1890s research papers are so radioactive to this day that you need to wear special equipment to take them out of their lead box. The first book on radioactivity, and it's radioactive. It's like buying a book on how to talk to ghosts, and the book arrives with 3 ghosts haunting it. This should be the top answer. Fearlessly diving into the unknown, using the machine her husband had invented, discovering, and recording knowledge that benefits us all today, at the cost of her very life. The truest type of explorer there is. There should be statues of her at every nuclear facility, hospital, and public park for what she has done, and lost, on our behalf. Mary Shelley. She was the daughter of 2 very famous authors, married an even more famous poet, and most of her circle was comprised of famous, male, writers like Lord Byron and Leigh Hunt. Despite this, she still held her own and wrote a world-renowned work of literature that is arguably far more influential than anything Percy or Lord Byron is. Crap, the only people who read Byron or Percy Shelley in their entirety are academics like me, but everyone has heard of Frankenstein. She basically pioneered 2 genres in one lifetime. Sci-fi and dystopian with Frankenstein and The Last Man. No, it wasn't actually Mary Shelley that wrote The Last Man, it was Mary Shelley's monster that wrote it. Mary Shelley was the scientist that created Mary Shelley's monster. Don't worry though, it's a common mistake. Also, wasn't she 19 when she wrote it? Absolute legend. And it started with a scary stories contest her husband and friends were doing on a vacation, or something. It was during the year without a summer if I recall correctly. An Indonesian volcano exploded and the result was pretty close to a tiny atomic winter. Shelley and her friends were basically stuck in a summer mansion near the Alps somewhere, and because it was raining constantly, they passed the time telling ghost stories. I think that volcano also resulted in Munch's The Scream painting and some other major pieces of Western art/culture. Oh damn, you just beat me to this fun fact. I literally watched the video on this last night. It's crazy how so much literature and art were influenced by the eruption of Mount Tambora. The whole Gothic thunderstorm aesthetic was birthed in that summer home in the Alps with endless rolling thunderclouds. All the sulfur in the atmosphere created brilliant green sunsets and bleak skies recreated in beautifully depressing/apocalyptic. Web link. Her life was really tragic. She traveled around with her husband while he cheated on her with men and women. During these travels, her children died. Her husband ended up drowning in a sailing accident, and she searched for his body with his mistress. I would have let him float. As a young female writer, God, I admire Mary Shelley. Of course, you already know this, but she came up with the idea of Frankenstein for a contest. Imagine just creating a whole genre like that. And not just that, one of the first stories to really explore the controversial, darker aspects of scientific progress and look at those ethical issues. Frankenstein is absolutely brilliant in how it does that. One of these days, I want to write something with that amount of complexity, but I always feel I can't get past the surface, you know. I wouldn't start with anything like the goal of writing something with a given degree of complexity. Just pick something you love or hate, Ray Bradbury's advice, and start writing. Debbie Ryn Harvey of Lawport, Texas. She's a retired Southwest Airlines captain, longest-running member of the U.S. aerobatic team, has competed in 15 world championships and is on the board of directors of the International Aerobatics Club. She's also been inducted into multiple aviation halls of fame. More importantly, as an FAA-designated examiner, she tested me and granted my private pilot's license. She's accomplished, smart as all get out, and an all-around great person. She was my summer camp leader in middle school. I went to a day camp at Oshkosh AirVenture specifically for teenage girls who were interested in aviation. What an awesome woman. I'm so lucky I got the chance to get to know her. Yeah, she is awesome. I didn't know she was a DPE, but I'm glad to hear that because most DPEs I know are buttholes. Sophie Scally, active member of a nonviolent resistance group against Nazi Germany. If I remember correctly, she was executed for distributing pamphlets promoting her cause. She stood up for others even in the face of death. I deeply admire that. Edit. Thanks to everyone who shared more about her and her impact in the comments, and thanks for the awards. The real damage is done by those millions who want to survive. The honest men who just want to be left in peace. Those who don't want their little lives disturbed by anything bigger than themselves. Those with no sides and no causes. Those who won't take measure of their own strength, for fear of antagonizing their own weakness. Those who don't like to make waves, or enemies. Those for whom freedom, honor, truth, and principles are only literature. Those who live small, made small, die small. It's the reductionist approach to life. If you keep it small, you'll keep it under control. If you don't make any noise, the bogeyman won't find you. But it's all an illusion, because they die too. Those people who roll up their spirits into tiny little balls so as to be safe. Safe? From what? Life is always on the edge of death. Narrow streets lead to the same place as wide avenues, and a little candle burns itself out just like a flaming torch does. I choose my own way to burn. Sophie Scally. She was arrested by the Gestapo and executed with other members of the White Rose Group, by guillotine. She was otherworldly brave. I recently watched Downfall, which included an interview with Hitler's secretary Traudl Junge, and she said something along the lines of her being the same age as Scally, and joining Hitler in the same year Scally was executed. I thought it was a pretty great juxtaposition. Here's the quote. However, one day, I walked past a plaque on the Franz Josef Strasse, in Munich, on the wall in memory of Sophie Scally. I could see that she had been born the same year as I, and that she had been executed the same year I entered into Hitler's service. And, at that moment, I really realized that it was no excuse that I had been so young. I could perhaps have tried to find out about things. One of my favorite webcomic artists, Winston Rowntree, did a piece comparing the two women's experiences in Hitler's Germany. It's called The Line being what separates a person from being complicit, and being true to their values. If you have 10 minutes, you can read it if you're interested here. I effing love his work. Web link. In the same vein, this Twitter thread. Most people who know the name Sophie Scally know she was a 21-year-old German student activist who was executed by the Nazis for distributing anti-Nazi pamphlets on her college campus. But people don't talk about what happened leading up to her execution, or what happened after. Sophie and her brother Hans were caught by a university janitor named Jacob Schmidt as they distributed pamphlets in a courtyard. He grabbed them, declared them under arrest, and turned them over to the Gestapo. 4 days of interrogations later, they were in front of Nazi judge Roland Freisler, one of Hitler's favorites, his hanging judge flown in from Berlin, for a show trial that Hans and Sophie's parents weren't allowed in the courtroom for. Hans, Sophie, and their friend Christoph Probst were all found guilty of treason, sentenced to death, and beheaded a few hours later. No one talks about this janitor, Jacob Schmidt. He got a cash reward and a promotion for turning in Sophie and Hans. The University of Munich threw him a celebration. Hundreds of students attended and cheered for him. He thanked them with a Nazi salute. After the war, Jacob Schmidt was arrested and put on a trial of his own. He said he only turned the Scholls in because distributing pamphlets was against university policy. It wasn't because of the content of the pamphlets. When you think of Nazis, you probably think of uniformed officers. But the Nazis were a political party of everyday people. So also, think of a janitor tasking that someone wasn't protesting the right way. A student at rally applauding him. A judge towing the party line. We like to tell ourselves Nazi Germany was so horrific it could never be repeated. Maybe you don't personally know someone who would have flipped the switch on the gas chambers. But I can almost guarantee you know a Jacob Schmidt. That's the most metal thing I've ever read. I don't think you know how much I needed to hear that, and I thank you. Truly the words of a hero. Yes, she was so amazingly humble and brave. She thought so little of her impending death sentence at 21 years old, saying how she was just one in the multitudes of humanity. She haunts me / her words haunt me. I hope to make her proud. Jesus. That was beautiful as it was powerful. This is the third time I've seen this writing. The universe must be telling me something. Such a fine, sunny day, and I have to go. What does my death matter, if through us, thousands of people are awakened and stirred to action? There's a movie about it which is pretty widely watched when learning German and studying German history. Web link. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to be the first to know about Red Rabbit Reader's new videos. If you like our videos, please like them on YouTube and share them with your friends. We welcome your comments below. Press to start another of our videos.